Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome, everybody, to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I am Mark Souza. I am here with Jeff. He'll be joining me today.
Yes, I am. We
have a full slate of topics to talk about. We're going to discuss the Champions League results from match day 2. There's also some upcoming games, so we will look at those notable matchups in detail and break down the games that did just happen yesterday. We will also, in segment 2, we'll be talking about the Manchester United drama and the Real Madrid scoring slump that they are going through now. In the third segment, we will talk about the EPL as we look ahead to match week 8. Obviously, a very exciting league. Should be some fun games this weekend, so we'll take a look inside those. And then for the last segment, we will talk about other soccer news related around the world. So let's jump into it. Yesterday, we saw Juventus with a suspended Cristiano Ronaldo, so he did not get to play. They defeat Young Boys 3-0.
Dybala, probably my favorite team name, by the way.
Young Boys. Yeah, so Juventus takes care of business as predicted, 3-0. Dybala from Argentina had 3 goals in that game. We look at Benfica from Portugal. They take care of Athens from Greece, 3-2. Moscow, actually, CSKA Moscow picks up a stunning defeat over Real Madrid, an upset there. A lot of people did not see that coming. Bayern Munich were drawn at home against Ajax of Amsterdam. Another surprising result. A lot of people believe that Bayern Munich has a great chance of winning the Champions League this year, but regardless, Ajax is a team, some would say, doesn't have the same quality. So Manchester United, of course, they had Valencia. It was a home game. United has been struggling recently, and they draw 0-0. Just another struggle for Manchester United, another game that goes by without a win, and the pressure mounts on Jose Mourinho. And we'll talk about that in detail next segment. Manchester City got a late goal. They beat TSG Hoffenheim 2-1. And then Shakhtar and Lyon tie 2-2. And the biggest win of the day goes to Roma, beating Victoria Plzen 5-0. So
it's 5-0, I thought.
5-0, 5-0. Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get with the proper soccer etiquette. I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to soccer, I'll be honest, but I just know the nil part is important.
So what you do need to know about that game is that Roma was predicted to be a heavy favorite. They took care of business. So Juventus, they win. They played without Ronaldo. As we know, he got that red card in the first match day. A very controversial red card, wouldn't you say?
Well, I did watch the red card, and it was a tad ridiculous. Okay, more than a tad, it was ridiculous. Coming from, it even looked like he touched him. He looked like he just slightly tapped him.
Yeah, he tapped him on the top of the head.
I've seen a lot worse.
Yeah, so the red card happens. They did reduce his suspension, so he's only going to miss this. He only missed this game. He'll be back. Juventus is actually their next game is against Manchester United. which is a very notable fixture. So he will get to play his former team, Manchester United, and Juventus will welcome him back and probably pair him with Dybala, who scored 3 goals yesterday. It was nice to see him. He was kind of a player who was, set aside when they signed Ronaldo, and Juventus looked strong yesterday even without him. So, yes, Manchester United, of course, they draw against Valencia. It was just another dull performance from Manchester United. We're getting used to that from this Mourinho-led team. This season has not started off as well as they would have liked. They did get 18 attempts to the 8 attempts for Valencia, but really only a couple real strong chances. They looked better than they have been in previous games, but unfortunately they could not find the breakthrough finish. They draw. So, yeah, looking at Manchester City, they take care of business with the second goal by David Silva in the 87th minute, puts them over Hoffenheim. Fortunately for them, they were able to get the win after a less than stellar performance. We expect at this point to see Manchester City score goals in abundance, but they do get the win. So, for match day 2 in today's game, we have Borussia Dortmund against Monaco. Do you know who plays for Borussia Dortmund?
I think you told me this before, didn't you?
He's an American. He's our best player.
That doesn't really say much compared to see how bad the U.S. men's soccer team has been in the last couple of years.
That may be true, but he's also a player that is playing for a big club, Borussia Dortmund. So it's Christian Pulisic. He'll be playing. His team will be playing. I'm not sure if he'll be in the starting lineup. We haven't seen those lineups given yet.
Is he a casual starter? Or is he like or does he?
He starts most games, but he doesn't start every game.
So he's not like the best player on the team by any means.
No, but they're also a team that's very well rounded. They have a lot of good young players. So
young boys, you're saying?
Young men.
Couldn't help it.
Young men.
Yeah, it said it sound wrong, didn't it? Oh, that's a bad name for a team when you think about it like that.
So Dortmund is a good team. They play against Monaco. A very important game. So Pulisic did get a goal in his first Champions League match of this season. They will be at home against Monaco. I expect them to win this game. I think it'll be close. Monaco's obviously a decent team, but I'm going to go with like a 2-1 prediction here. A big game for me today is Tottenham and Barcelona. I think that is today's best matchup, most intriguing matchup. Tottenham, they are looking to make that next step as a club. They've had domestic success, albeit without really any trophies. But in Champions League, they've struggled.
So sorry to interrupt real quick, but I'm just I'm looking at the scores right now because there's games going on in the Champions League, and Paris Saint-Germain is up 2-0 in the 23rd minute, and Neymar has scored on the 20th minute and the 22nd minute. So in 2 minutes' time, it's already 2-0 in a very. I just felt like that would be an important thing to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that game, PSG is definitely the stronger team there. So I expect them to continue that. Probably put a couple more goals.
It was just nothing for so long, and then in literally 2 minutes until you're down 2 goals. That's probably demoralizing for the Red Stars.
Yeah, we'll have to check the highlights to see what the goals looked like. But yeah, it's a good start for PSG as they're another team too. I was talking about Tottenham. They're a team. Both teams, Tottenham and PSG, they're two clubs that are looking to not just be successful domestically, but the next step in their progression is actually doing well, getting far in the Champions League. I think for PSG in particular, a Champions League final has to be their goal, at least reaching the final after, being shown the door early in competitions past. So look for that too. Schalke and Lokomotiv Moscow are also playing right now. That score is 0-0. So we'll see how that one ends up. But yes, Tottenham-Barcelona is going to be a highly contested game. Tottenham is at home, so they will host Messi and Dembele, Suarez, and the rest of the boys from Barcelona later on today. You have a prediction in that game?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Messi retiring soon? Was that the big story that was happening? Or?
He might retire from international play, but he's not retiring
From Barcelona?
Club. Yeah, no, he'll be there for a few more years for sure.
Okay, I'm just trying to double check that facts because I remember there was an emotional send off for him or something of that nature recently. I'm not sure if that was him or not. I'm pretty sure that was Messi, but going from he's still the number one player in the world.
Ooh,
or not right now.
I mean,
or considered the number one player in the world still. I mean, he didn't win the award, but
yeah, I mean, it's Messi or Ronaldo probably. That's
he's still
that's
probably
the never-ending argument is who's
Ronaldo
the best
versus Messi.
Yeah, I mean, both of them won Player of the Year every year for 10 years until this last one. So, I mean...
Well, granted, I think you can still put them, either Messi or Ronaldo as number one. Even if they didn't win an award, I would still... you don't see, an example, you don't see, I want to try another sport, but I don't want to go off topic here. So I'll just say you don't see one of the greatest, Tom Brady doesn't win the MVP award every year, and he's still considered the greatest of all time.
Right.
So you can say the same with Messi or Ronaldo.
Absolutely. A lot of it's based on team success. Like if it's a year that Real Madrid, when Ronaldo was with Real Madrid and when they were winning titles, Ronaldo was likely winning Player of the Year and vice versa.
I think right now, between Tottenham and Barcelona they're playing, I think home field advantage is going to play a factor when it comes, especially in soccer. I think that is the most important because when you look, just as a casual viewer of soccer, when you look at the crowd in a soccer match, it truly is like you're playing in front of the most diehard crowd you could possibly find anywhere.
Yeah, you make a good point too because we saw it last week when Liverpool and PSG played against each other. Liverpool was at home, and I thought that it made a considerable difference. They just had so much energy in that game. They were on the front foot from minute one, and they just seemed to get that extra boost at home. So you make a good point there about the home field advantage. So, as we look at that group, Barcelona, they have 3 points. Tottenham fell to Inter Milan, so they don't have any points. So it's kind of a big game for Tottenham. So also we got to keep that in mind. So the home field advantage plus Tottenham, knowing that they need at least a draw in this game. They don't want to lose and not have any points after match week 2 because then Barcelona and possibly Inter Milan will have 6, which will mean that there'll be a full 2 games behind them with 4 to go. You don't want to be in that big of a hole early. So it is a massive, massive game for Tottenham as they face the always strong Barcelona.
Yeah, well, I think Barcelona's always been known as just a strong team. They're like the Patriots of soccer when you think about it.
Yeah, they're always
competitive.
They're always a contender, absolutely. So yes, yesterday also we saw Moscow beat Real Madrid. It was another game for Real Madrid where they had a lot of attempts. They had 73% possession to 27%, but they could not score a goal. And ultimately, they did fall to the Russian side 1-0. A goal that was scored in the second minute by Nikola Vlasic. So he scores in the second minute. And Moscow just holds on for dear life as they defeat Real Madrid. Is that a shocking result to you to see a team like Real Madrid lose to a side like CSKA Moscow?
I think in any sport, when a team of that caliber gets upset, it just shows there might be a downcline. I think losing Ronaldo put a huge hole in that team. I mean, when you consider one of the greatest players of this generation, if not of all time, it's got to put a factor in of how poor your team will do without him.
Yeah, so a quick recap of the groups that have played 2 games. I'll go through the standings. Ajax has 4 points. Bayern has 4 points. Benfica has 3, and AEK Athens has 0. That's in Group E. In Group F, we have Lyon with 4, City with 3 points, Shakhtar with 2, and Hoffenheim with 1 in Group F. That is. Group G is Moscow with 4, Madrid with 3, Roma with 3, and Victoria Plzen with 1. In Group H, Juventus leads the pack with 6, United at 4. Valencia 1, Young Boys still without a point.
How long does this go on for?
So there's 6 matches in the group stage. So some of these groups have played 2, and the other ones are playing their second game today. So with that being said, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, I'm going to dive into the Manchester United drama with Jose Mourinho, and also we'll look at why Real Madrid hasn't been scoring goals lately. Coming at you right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. In the first segment, we talked about the Champions League fixtures that just took place yesterday, and also today's upcoming fixtures. And right now, we will talk a little bit about Manchester United in detail as the pressure mounts on the special one, quote-unquote, Jose Mourinho. As we know, he gave himself that title of the special one. Jeff, what do you think about that?
Kind of arrogant.
Wouldn't you say?
Calling yourself the special one, like, you got to let other people call you a nickname.
That's true. I'm not a fan of giving yourself a nickname. That should be more organic.
Call me Mr. Awesome. Can you call me Mr. Awesome, guys?
So what is?
I need vindication.
So what is not awesome is Manchester United's start, especially in the English Premier League. Champions League, they're sitting at 4 points.
It's not the special one.
Yeah. Champions League, they're sitting at 4 points right now. Not the worst start. They do play Juventus in their next game, so that match will be pivotal, maybe to winning the group. They are obviously set up to advance to the next round. But as we look at the English Premier League table, Manchester United, they've won 3 games, they've lost 3 games, and they've drawn 1 game. Teams like Manchester City, Liverpool, and Chelsea have not lost a game yet. So as it stands right now, 10th place, Manchester United sitting at 10 points. They are 9 points off already of first place right now. So last year they did finish second. A lot of people do forget that, and a lot of people don't give Manchester United or Mourinho credit for that, because Manchester City finished in such high position. I mean, there was a 20-point gap between first and second. It wasn't a race. It was a one-team race. So a lot of people forget United actually had a pretty good year last year, but City had an incredible year. The pressure is mounting on Manchester United. We've heard the rumors. We've seen them. Is Mourinho going to be out? Mourinho also has a track record of being fired in the 3rd year of every job that he's had, at least the last...
Bad track record.
Yeah, he just he's a coach that he's hard to work for. I think if we're making a comparison to American football, for example, I would say he's like Jim Harbaugh, where he can be he's a very good coach, but he kind of runs his course and then he moves on to other things.
Well, Jim Harbaugh kind of got fired. He probably would have stayed in San Francisco if he won for the GM Trent Baalke at the time.
But what I mean is he kind of is a hard person to deal with for a period of time, if that makes sense.
Sometimes if they're getting the job done, you got to bite your lip and take it.
Exactly. So, as we look, Manchester United struggling, 10 points, already 9 points off the pace. This is a club, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, one of the biggest sports franchises in the world. They don't play for third place. They don't play for fourth place. So being 9 points off of the pace right now through 7 games in the English Premier League season, that does last 38 games. It's a long season, of course, but you don't want to start off, 12, 15 points behind the leaders early on. And they have a match this Saturday against Newcastle United. It's a team that they should win. Newcastle sitting in 18th place. They're winless through 7 games. Would you say this is a must-win for Mourinho to keep his job?
They're winless at the moment, you say?
Yeah, Newcastle is 2 draws and 5 losses, and they've only scored 2 goals in 7 games.
Only 2 goals is, I would say I would put his job at the line. Your team's not getting it done, then I'll get someone that can get it done.
And that game will be on at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time on NBC.
Ding, ding, dong.
That is something to watch. I think his job is safe for now, but if they lose, if they even tie this game, if they get a draw against Newcastle,
if they score a lot of goals, I think they're like, all right, fine, we'll hold on to you for a little bit. But I think his team needs to score goals.
Well, that's the problem, is that Manchester United, not only are they not getting the results, but they tend to not score enough goals. They don't play a brand of football or soccer, whatever you would like to call it, that is
like
aesthetically
just a
pleasing.
with a famous name to them on their jerseys, and that's why they're where they are.
I mean, they have great players on their team. Of course, they're led by...
they just don't sound like they're getting it done. Or
oh,
care.
yeah.
It sounds like they don't care, almost.
Well, that's the thing, too. It's like, the question is, has he lost the locker room? That's like an argument, because you got players like Paul Pogba, who's a World Cup champion, who's not playing at the level that he's used to. Other guys like Lukaku, Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, these guys are inconsistent. They're not getting it done. So it's not just tactically, but we will see how this team reacts. They're going through some turmoil. They need to figure it out quick. And I think if Mourinho is going to be the coach at least through the holidays, it's going to have to turn around this Saturday against Newcastle. They're going to have to win that game at home. If they lose, he could be out early. Now, we've heard possible replacements for Mourinho if he does, in fact, get sacked over the weekend or in the upcoming future.
Getting sacked in a soccer game, that's the wrong type of football.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be here all week, sadly.
So
for the people that don't like cheesy jokes.
Zinedine Zidane is a popular name. He's the front runner to be the next Manchester United coach if they do go on and fire Mourinho, and that is because not only is Zinedine Zidane one of the greatest soccer players of all time, but he has massive success in such a very short tenure as a head coach, as head of Real Madrid, before he resigned to pursue taking time off before he gets back another coaching position. But 3 Champions League titles, unheard of what he did. He's a name. He's a name to look for. I know some people say that Ryan Giggs might be the next replacement manager for Manchester United. It's a possibility. I would say that they would probably go for a bigger name like Zinedine Zidane, and if they get turned down, then maybe we do see a guy like Giggs, a former legend of Manchester United. Maybe he steps in, at least finishes the season. We've seen him do it before. But yeah, now, moving on, I would like to talk a little bit about Real Madrid. They struggled to find the net yesterday against Moscow in their Champions League defeat in Russia. They lose 1-0. Despite having 28 attempts on goal, they just could not find the back of the net. Now, Real Madrid has 2 defeats and 1 draw in their last 3 games overall in all competitions. They have gone 329 minutes without scoring a single goal. That is more than 5 hours of play if you're keeping track.
How long?
They have not scored a goal in 329 minutes.
It's a long time.
The last time they went this long before celebrating a goal was in 2007. And that was when David Beckham was still a Real Madrid player. That is 11 years that they have gone. That has been since they've gone this long without scoring a goal in this many games. It's incredible. So as we all know, Real Madrid is going through a transition this year as they sold $100 million transfer fee Cristiano Ronaldo to Juventus. You know, it was something that it was said that Ronaldo wanted to leave. There was some drama going on between him and Florentino Perez, the president of Real Madrid. He didn't feel like he had the support of the club when he was going through his tax evasion case. Do you think that they miss him now?
For how they're playing, I wouldn't be surprised if some people do. But I think they just need to know that it's a process.
Right. And as for Ronaldo, he's getting a little bit older in age. He turns 34 this year. But if there's one thing that he's been able to maintain over the years, even if he's losing some of his creativity maybe in the midfield, he's able to score goals. I mean, that is a fact. The man has turned into a clinical striker. He can score free kicks. He can score off of headers. He just knows where to be in the box for his teammates. And it looks like Real Madrid, they could use that right about now.
Oh, they're like, oh man, maybe we shouldn't have gotten rid of him. But it was a lot of money, granted. And like I said before, maybe we'll see in the process of things. Right now, they probably do. But I guarantee you that as soon as like he retires, which is probably going to be sooner rather than later, they're going to be like, okay, we made the right choice. We have all this money. Let's use it.
Yeah, and it's tough for the new manager there to follow in Zidane's footsteps. You're talking about a coach that was insanely successful for such a short period of time that, you know, any struggles, especially early, is going to be widely scrutinized. But Real Madrid also, they do have the current best player in the world. I mean, obviously that's an opinion. We can talk about that. But the actual holder of the title is Luka Modric. And he just doesn't look like himself. I think that with his long season last year, plus the demanding World Cup run that he led his country, Croatia, into, he looks a little tired. He looks a little drained. That might be a problem. Would you say? I mean, a lot of these players, something that I'm not sure that if you are aware of, Jeff, but these players usually have about 2 months in the summer where they have off before the new season starts. But in a World Cup year, you're not afforded that time. You go straight into training and preparing, and then you go into the tournament. And if your team goes far, you have played well into July, and then August your season starts. You don't really have vacation or holiday, as they would call it over in Europe. You think that's playing into a factor of maybe why Luka Modric isn't performing as well as he has been known to?
I think with that, what you've been saying is, God, that's a loaded question. It's a long question, that's for sure. But
well, he is 33, so Modric is not a 27, 28-year-old player.
That can do that. Definitely, like, age is definitely playing a factor in this. And he is, like, you said he's played, he sent Croatia to the World Cup, correct?
Yeah, to the finals where they lost to France.
So he literally had no break.
Yeah, he's been given rest here and there during games, like they won't play him, but
there is a toll where you need like longer than a day or two.
Yeah, I also think there's a mental toll too. It's not just physical. Like you need to take a step back after you play soccer or any sport for 12 months in a row. I mean,
so a whole year straight.
I mean, he literally had, other than the international break or the league break in the winter, so in January they take some time off in the European leagues where during winter where the weather's not so great, but they have like a break in between the first half and the second half of the season. Other than that, a couple weeks off, he has been playing consistently since January.
Yeah, but again, how long can he continue this for?
Yeah, it's true. He is a guy who's 33, and a lot of his game relies on being able to be that box-to-box midfielder. So it is something to keep an eye on there. He just won his award for being the best player in the world, but I mean, he's 33. You could see a decline happening sooner rather than later,
Yeah, and you might be saying he's already declining.
We'll see how long this continues. So Manchester United, I mean, they have other really good players, of course, Marco Asensio, Gareth Bale, Benzema. Of course, they add the keeper Thibaut Courtois with Keylor Navas, Sergio Ramos. I mean, they have names, they have players. They're a great team, but they're not scoring right now. And as we saw in the last few years, we saw them be able to play a beautiful brand of soccer, of football, while having that tremendous goal-scoring threat in the box that defenses always had to keep an eye on. You'd always have to mark Ronaldo with more likely you'd have to at least have one player shading him and marking him man-to-man. But, with their goal-scoring drought, we'll see how long this can continue. We will be taking a short break, and right after this, we're going to dive into the English Premier League Match Week 8 this weekend. There's some notable games. We'll go through them briefly, talk about kind of what we see being the results of the games, and we'll be back with you right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. The first two segments we talked about the Champions League in detail. We also covered Manchester United and their drama in the last segment. And of course, we talked about the Real Madrid scoring slump and if they're missing Mr. Cristiano Ronaldo at this time. Now, I'd like to jump into the English Premier League.
Wait, hold on. Can I stop? Do you know that meme with Wolverine and holding that picture?
Yes.
Do you think do you think there's a Real Madrid one with Ronaldo?
I will say if their scoring drought continues, that will be a meme. If it isn't, which it probably is.
Probably
the internet
is. As soon as he got traded, that was probably that.
So we'll jump into the Premier League.
You said missing. I'm like, oh, that just reminded me of that one. That meme. It's a great meme too.
So we're coming up on match week 8 this weekend in the English Premier League, which I feel is the best league up and down in the world. I say that because this league is tough from top to bottom. There's other leagues where it might be a little top heavy, but the English League is just a league where the 20th place team, 19th place team can give the first place team, second place team a run anytime. It's very balanced. So looking at the standings, these are your top 4. Manchester City at 19 points, Liverpool at 19 points, Chelsea at 17, Tottenham at 15, also tied with Arsenal. So the top 5 actually, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. And as we look at it, 3 teams right now are undefeated on the year. Man City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. And that leads me to this weekend's big game. The game of the week. Liverpool, Manchester City. The battle of the current top 2 teams in the English Premier League. And my top 2 teams. In my preseason predictions, I had Man City and Liverpool finishing 1 and 2. And it's no surprise to see them at 6 wins and a draw apiece. So they come into the game, both teams scoring at a really high rate. Manchester City has 21 goals, 3 against. Liverpool 15 and 3 against. It's going to be a tough game. Now, Liverpool is the home team. And you talked a little bit about home field advantage.
Yeah.
Do you see that being the biggest factor in this matchup of 2 heavyweights, Liverpool and Manchester City?
Yes, I do. But also, I'm taking nothing away from Manchester City because just they're always known as a great team. So this is definitely going to be a close one.
Yeah.
I don't see this being like, oh, it's all Liverpool or oh, it's all Manchester City. This is going to be coming down to the wire. My prediction.
Yeah, it's what I like too is that when these 2 teams play, Liverpool's had their number at least recently. Liverpool is coached by Jurgen Klopp, who has done as good of a job as anybody at stopping Pep Guardiola's Manchester City team. The way they like to play, the Liverpool press has really affected Manchester City in the past. It's flustered them. It's made them play a game that they don't want to play, where they actually have to build their attack from the back. They like to play much higher up the field. But the hardworking forwards that Liverpool have in Roberto Firmino, Mohamed Salah, and Sadio Mane really, really has affected Manchester City in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see early on in this game if Manchester City has changed anything tactically to get around that very high press of Liverpool.
Yeah, you're right. Just it's this one. Should we do another coin flip?
I don't know.
It's up to you. I'm letting you lead this one.
I actually think Liverpool is going to win.
Okay.
I have them. They're at home, and I think that with their past success against Manchester City, they're going to feel confident. I am going to go with a 3-2 victory for Liverpool. I see Salah making his mark on this game, where he's been kind of he hasn't been at his true form the last few games, but I see him really putting his stamp on this one. 3-2 Liverpool.
Okay. I'm gonna flip the coin because I have no idea. I think it's gonna be close. Calling in the air.
It really is a coin flip game, to be honest with you. So
okay, so we should. All right, if whatever you call it, that will be whatever Liverpool is, since you think they'll win.
Heads.
All right, heads. All right, heads. You always pick it. Okay, heads. Liverpool. Tails. Manchester City. It is heads, so it looks like that Liverpool will take this 3-2. It looks like it's all destined now. It's what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on, let's take a look at some of the other fixtures. I mean, that is for sure the match of the week. There won't be another fixture that gets as much hype.
Yeah, true.
So
it's like 2 of the most popular teams in the Europe. So
yeah, absolutely, and both teams are contenders to win the Champions League, not just English Premier League. So Brighton and West Ham will match up with each other. Those are 2 teams that need a win.
Well, let me ask you this real quick.
Yes,
as a casual watches every now and again fan, what do you think? Which one would you rather win, the Premier League or the Champions
League?
Okay, just trying to make just in case
one is the winner of England, one's the winner of Europe.
Okay, but I'm just trying to say, like, for the other people that really maybe not are aware of how prestigious these leagues are, which one would be considered more important?
I mean, I think when you set out, for most clubs, though, when you set out your season goals, you're winning your domestic league is always at the top because that's the one that's most attainable, and that's the one that you're always going for. Some years you might go for Champions League glory because you feel like you have the squad to do it.
Which domestic league is probably the toughest? I would say Europe, right? Or Spanish.
for Europe and domestic league, some people would say Spain, but England for me is the number one league because of how strong the weak teams are in that league.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, the English Premier League is known for not having tremendous success in Champions League, and I base that mostly because of the strenuous season that those teams have to play. They can't afford to rest players in their English league games, whereas some of the bigger teams in Spain, in Germany, the Bayern Munichs of the world, the Juventus teams of the world, Barcelona, Real Madrid, those teams can oftentimes afford to sit their best players and rest them for the big upcoming Champions League matches, where in England, the rosters, they're deep, but they're not. Those starting 11 players are just playing a lot of minutes against a lot of tough teams all the time.
Interesting.
So a lot of people would say, oh, England can't be the best league because their success in Europe doesn't warrant that conversation.
But do you think it's like based off like they're so exhausted from that domestic league that they are almost like they're beat up going into a Champions League match?
Yeah,
okay.
For example, like I'll take Barcelona and Real Madrid, for example. They both head the Spanish league, but in Spain there's 4 or 5 teams that are good, and then there's 5 or 6 teams that are just really bad. Like that, they're almost like they can
sounds
play
like
their
the
second,
NBA.
Yeah, they can play their second squads and still walk out with a win. Where in England, if you play, you're taking a risk as an English club, even if you're a Manchester United or an Arsenal or a Chelsea or a Manchester City team like that. If you play a team like Brighton or West Ham, who are in the lower part of the table, if you don't play your best 11, you're running the risk of not winning that game because those teams are strong enough to beat you. Those teams are strong enough to draw you. So that's my opinion on why England is the best league. So going back, Brighton and West Ham.
Sorry to kid you on topic.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Brighton and West Ham, that'll be a tough matchup. Both teams need a win there. Burnley plays Huddersfield.
Huddersfield.
Yeah, Huddersfield, I believe, is the weakest team, or maybe second weakest team. I see them being relegated this year. Burnley is playing a lot better recently, so they should come out with a result. One notable game that I'll be looking for is Crystal Palace. They play against Wolves.
There's a team called Crystal Palace.
There is.
That's an awesome name.
Crystal Palace with 7 points, and Wolves are at 12. Wolves have been kind of the darling of the Premier League so far because they're a newly promoted team. They actually were promoted from the second division, the championship as they call it in England, and they've hit the ground running. A lot of times the teams struggle when they go up and play the big boys, but this team currently sits at 9th place, 3 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss, 12 points. So Wolves have surprised and impressed, and they play a Crystal Palace team that's vulnerable right now, coming off a loss. So I see Wolves winning this game. I'll go with a 2-0 win there. Leicester City and Everton, that should be a fun matchup as two teams kind of in the middle of the table right now are looking to get 3 points under their belt so they can push possibly into the top 6 after this weekend. Tough game for me. I think Leicester will probably pull this one out, but I could see a draw in this game, like a 1-1 type game.
Well, yeah, I just feel like that'd be so disappointing.
What, like a draw?
Yeah, in a hyped matchup like this. Well, maybe not hyped, but a match that people are looking forward to. Yeah,
well, draws happen, so it's kind of like, where will they be when you look at the games? Chelsea and Southampton. Eden Hazard is on fire for Chelsea right now. The guy is, if we were doing our early season player of the year for England, Eden Hazard would have won that title. He has 6 goals and 2 assists in 7 games. His scoring record right now is unmatched. I see him scoring again this weekend, this Sunday, as Chelsea likely defeats Southampton by a few goals. I'll say 3-0 there, 3-0. Fulham will play Arsenal in a battle between two London-based clubs. Fulham, also a newly promoted side. Arsenal's been playing pretty well. Lacazette has been strong as of late for Arsenal. I see Arsenal taking this. I would say probably a 2-1 win there. And then, of course, Manchester United against Newcastle. We talked about it a little bit in the last segment. I think Manchester United needs a win. I think they absolutely need to win for Mourinho to be the coach on Monday morning at training.
Yeah, well, not having been on a winless team, even with draws, really puts you at puts your seat really cooking. Like you can cook eggs on that seat.
I mean, Manchester City, they're playing a team that hasn't won any games, but I mean they've struggled, but they need a win here. I mean, it's just when you look at
it's a must-win situation.
I would say so. They're 9 points back from, like we talked about, from first. They're 9 points already. That's already a big hole to be in for a team that's has aspirations of winning the league, and they're playing against Newcastle, a winless team. They must win. They're at home. Yeah, that's kind of my outlook as for the English Premier League this weekend. Tottenham plays Cardiff City. I didn't mention that game, but that should be an easy win for Tottenham. I say Harry Kane continues his streak of goals. They win 3-2. Watford Bournemouth is going to be a fun game. Both teams have been impressive early on in the season. We'll see if they can continue their run. Their teams that aren't used to being so high in the standings. Watford sits at 6th place with 13 points. Bournemouth 7th at 13 points. It's going to be a fun game. That's an underrated matchup this weekend. I know that people will look at the scores or the schedules and they look for the big teams, but if you get a chance to see Watford and Bournemouth play, both teams have been exciting so far this juncture in the season, both scoring goals, but both can also give up goals. So I see a game where I think it'll be something like a 2-2 game. I'd say if you're looking at all the games this weekend, this has the second or third highest potential of the highest scoring game, behind Liverpool, Manchester City. I think this is probably your best bet for a back and forth multiple goal output by both teams. So we will end that segment here. We'll go to a short break. When we come back, we will finish up with some news in the beautiful game. Thank you. We'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Of course, I'm Mark and my good buddy here, Jeff.
All right, if I'm your good buddy, what's my last name?
Malinoff.
All right, well, okay. Granted. Okay.
Yep, you got any other questions for me here?
All right, when's my birthday?
Yeah, we're not that good of friends. To be fair, I don't really know too many of my friends' birthdays off the top of my head.
I know like two.
I know like the time of year that my friends' birthdays are.
I know one of my closest friends' birthday because he's literally like 15 days right after mine.
I know my wife's birthday, and that's
you should.
That's all that I need, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, parents too, I guess.
Yeah, I know theirs too, and my sister's.
I know my brother's I don't know my sister-in-laws. I'm sorry, guys.
Speaking of birthdays,
I love them to death. But okay, continue.
Speaking of birthdays, do you know that Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar share a birthday?
Okay.
Like the same date, February 5th.
They're the same person.
They're not the same age, but it is kind of crazy that those two players actually share a birthday. But regardless, moving on, as I've clearly lost Jeff here.
I'm sorry. I just like, well, I don't know how we got to birthday facts, so all of a sudden, but okay.
So the MLS Major League Soccer season is coming to a close. Teams are vying for the playoffs right now. Top 6 from each conference make it. It looks like out west, the Galaxy are currently on the outside looking in. I think it would be a shame if they don't make the playoffs, just because I want to see Zlatan Ibrahimovic in a playoff game. He's a draw. He's been great for the league. He's been fun to watch. What do you make of him? What do you know about Zlatan?
Probably the most popular soccer player in America at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't really.
That sounds about right. Maybe him or Carlos Vela is very popular.
Outside of Ronaldo and Messi, of course.
Yeah, like MLS players for sure. I mean, his presence.
MLS really doesn't get the love of others.
No, but I think that Zlatan's presence has been great for the league, and it just shows that players are kind of coming here earlier and earlier. Zlatan's getting up there in age, but he still has something in the tank. He could definitely play for a lot of big European clubs, especially Champions League clubs. He would definitely do well for them, start for them, make an impression. But him actually being in LA, I think, is good for the growth of the sport here. But they currently sit outside of the playoffs. They're only a couple points behind that last playoff spot. They could go as high as 4th, looking at the standings now. But yeah, Carlos Vela and the other LA team, LAFC, owned by Will Ferrell. Did you know that?
Who was owned by Will? Wait, say that again.
The new Los Angeles club, LAFC. This is their first year in the MLS. They're owned by Will Ferrell.
So there's another LA team.
LAFC.
So now there's 2 soccer teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 football teams, and a baseball team.
2 baseball team. Well, Anaheim.
They're not called LA.
They're count.
They're not called LA.
They're actually called the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
I thought they were the Angels. I thought they were just the Angels of Anaheim.
They have LA hat on their hat.
They just have an A with the
No, they don't.
the halo. The Angels?
Yeah.
I'm looking this. Hold on.
Regardless.
Are you kidding me? No, they just have the
Regardless,
Angels logo.
back to soccer, LAFC, owned by Will Ferrell. So they're having a great first season. Carlos Vela is their star player, the Mexican international. He's definitely put his mark on the league.
There is no L in that. It's just an A. I'm showing him a picture of the
Look at their
Angels.
hats.
I'm just showing him a picture of the
Look
Angels
at their hat.
logo. Okay.
Anyways.
Angels hat. All right. Fine.
As
This
we
means
move
war.
on, some notable fixtures in the world of soccer other than MLS. Barcelona, they play at Valencia this weekend.
I'm looking at their hats. I don't see an L. Like they had a California Angels hat, but I don't see any L. It always been just an A.
All right. We'll revisit
You're
this later.
wrong, sir.
Barcelona's at Valencia. Both teams matching up this weekend, coming off big Champions League ties this weekend. Valencia just drew Manchester United in Manchester, so they'll be returning home at Estadio Mestalla to play against Barcelona, who will be coming off their midweek Champions League clash with Tottenham Hotspur in London. So notable game there. Something to look for. Barcelona and Valencia, both teams, 2 teams, 2 of the top clubs in Spain. Of course, Barcelona needs no introduction of their own. Real Madrid, they play Alaves. Should be an easy win for Real Madrid. Don't see too much there. But, of course, they need to score goals. Maybe they can get on track this weekend by putting a few in the back of the net against an inferior opponent. Also in Italy, now we know Ronaldo was suspended for this week's clash in the Champions League, but he will return to the starting lineup assumingly I am, of course, against Udinese. Juventus has a chance here, I think, to build, especially off this match by Dybala, where he showed how class he is, how good he is on the ball, and how he can make things happen, scoring goals, playmaking. It would be really nice to see him and Ronaldo pair up together and attack opposing defenses. Of course, Juventus, they don't lack offensive firepower. They have guys like Mandzukic, Cuadrado, other players who can definitely strike fear in opponents. But let's be honest, if Ronaldo and Dybala are scoring goals, if they're creating chances, and they're both on form, that is a nightmare for opposing defenses. So it will be interesting to see how Juventus uses them, if they'll use Dybala up top next to Ronaldo, or if they'll have him play kind of that underneath to number 10 attacking midfielder role. As for the soccer podcast for the week, I think we are all finished here.
I'm still a little bitter about how you think the Angels of Anaheim are in LA. Anaheim in LA, whatever. We're going to get into this later. Well, if you want to listen to us talk about baseball, turn into the baseball podcast on Wednesdays. And we do all types of sports on the sports podcast in the mornings on Monday through Friday. And, we'll see you tomorrow. For tomorrow, we're doing the sports podcast, the football podcast, and then the basketball podcast.
Yep, check out those. Football, basketball, baseball. We do a total sports podcast, so be on the lookout for those. Of course, I'm Mark. I'm signing off for today. See ya.
Later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.